what are your thoughts on how you are differentiating yourself from the other folks running in the primaries? Because there's other folks who are feeling like it's their time to serve. What do you think is your focus that's kind of differentiating you from other Democrats right now?
Yeah. One main thing is that I'm not a career politician. And we have a few other candidates running right now who they've been in the political scene, but they're not necessarily career politicians. But what really stands out and makes me different is my policies. I have the biggest platform out of everybody running, and it's largely based off of Andrew Yang's and just addressing the poverty issues that we have locally. Nobody else is talking about UBI. Nobody else is talking about the data as a property right. Nobody is looking at these new issues. They're still repeating the same rhetoric that we've heard for the past decades. It's the same old nonsense stuck in the past instead of looking to the future. And that's what makes me so different is I am looking to the future. I'm not going to be stuck in the past. I'm not necessarily towing a party line. I'm going to do what's best for the people. To me, it does not matter if my neighbor is a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal. I think labels are incredibly dangerous and are playing into this divide. And you're still seeing a lot of people running right now who are definitely feeding into that. And that's what they were brought up on, and it's all they know. And I know that people are wise enough to choose what is going to make their community better and stronger instead of playing into this hateful divide. So, I really just think it's a matter of getting through to people, and it's hard to campaign during COVID-19. And I'm so focused on helping people that occasionally I forget the campaign part and, raising funds to keep it alive. I can't help people unless I keep my campaign alive, and I can't reach so many people and make big change unless I actually win. So it's just a really unique time, and I am so different. So it's a unique run.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, I love your policy page. It has a very strong Yang 2020 DNA to it in a good way. I noticed, you're running in like we talked about, a pretty traditionally conservative place, and a Second Amendment, gun rights is a big deal for a lot of voters, I'm sure, all over the country, but especially in your district. I'm curious, how do you thread that needle? I mean, it sounds like you're for gun safety education and even licensing. Now, that's a touchy one, that licensing one, because I could imagine some people are saying, well, I don't want the government to know what I own or to have any say over my rights. That's why it's an amendment. It starts with licensing, then they're going to just come in and take them. How do you handle that type of conversation?
That is a fear-based mindset that they're going to come and try to take our guns away. I love guns. We have several firearms here on the property. I was raised shooting guns. I have no issues with that. And what it is really education on safety. If we look at the numbers, I know you're like a data guy, right? So we have to really look at the numbers and say, why do these violent attempts happen? And we're looking at a mental health crisis, not necessarily a gun crisis. Why are people committing suicide? Why are they pulling the trigger on themselves? It's because the quality of life is so terrible that they don't see it getting any better. We need to address the root of these problems, not try to take people's guns away. We need to figure out why is there this disconnect in there? And you're right. The word licensing is mildly a scary term for a lot of people. But even locally, we had a bill come through just recently, and it was about deregulating licensing for different industries. Some of it was maybe like a barbershop or a local seamstress, and some of it was like an architect. It was just this huge variety of jobs that they were trying to say you don't need a license for anymore. And the people were very loud and outspoken, said, we do not want that for our safety, for liability, for your safety. you need to have a license. And what I try to correlate to people is if you think somebody needs a license to give you a haircut, then you should have a license to have a gun. If you need a license to drive a car because you could technically, kill yourself or somebody else, you need a license to have a firearm. We have a lot of people who accidentally shoot themselves. We have a lot of kids who get a hold of handguns here and shoot themselves or shoot other children. It is a safety issue. So people need to understand how to use their firearm safely, how to lock it up properly. And you can say, licensing is kind of scary, but really all that is you're getting a safety training. That's really it. And we have to have background checks. We already have background checks. It's not introducing anything new there. So there's nothing to be afraid of. I honestly, I kind of joke. This is totally be like off record kind of joking, but I don't think the government could take people's guns if they wanted to. There are so many people. It's not even like feasible in my opinion, but
yeah, there's quite a few of them out there, and I'm pretty sure you're right that that wouldn't be an easy. It wouldn't even be a feasible idea. It's interesting what you talk about gun licensing. I was chatting with a close friend of mine who recently purchased his first firearm, and I said, oh, cool. Let's talk about the different models and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Just because I like doing research and stuff like that. And he said, "Oh no, I already got it." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, did you go to the range and try a few out and make sure like it really kind of works for you?" And he's like, "No, I didn't have time to go to the range yet." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, are you gonna take class? Like get a class or anything?" And he said, "Well, the guy at the store showed me how to load it." And I was thinking to myself, this could not, this is like you were saying, you get a car, you want to drive a tractor, you want to pretty much do many things. You need some basic level of training and safety. And
right.
it was very disturbing, honestly, because then he was showing me the gun over video chat, and he's like waving it around. And I was like, "Hey, man, is that thing loaded?" He's like, no, it's not loaded. And he's like, "Look, the clip's right here." And I was like, "What about the chamber?" He's like, "What's the chamber?" And so,
wow,
it's just terrible. And the fact is, like
yeah,
I was just struck. So I think there is, like, you can love guns and think they're super important and cool, and frankly, I at the range I find them super fun. But you also can like take a class, learn the rules of safety, learn how to clean it, learn how to take it apart, learn how to put it together, learn how to store it. These are not like massive expectations. So I hope we can find some middle ground, but it seems like it's so hard on this issue. Like it's either black or white with some folks. Do you any thoughts on like how we could get the two sides to come a little closer together?
I mean, I sure as heck I'm going to try. I just think it's hard to ignore the numbers if you look them up. One of the number one reasons, top two reasons that children die in Tennessee, leading cause of death, children and teens, is by weapons and firearms. That's not something you can look and just say, "No, I don't want to take a safety class. I do not care about these kids' lives." Can you really honestly, look someone in the face and say that those kids' lives don't matter? All it is a matter of safety and storage and education. Nobody is trying to ask for anything other. Well, some people are trying to ask for that. I'm not asking for anything other than safety and education. And I think people are reasonable and they don't want to see people getting hurt or lives ending. So they're going to come around to their senses and what we, refer to as common sense gun laws. And like I said, fear is it's a terrible teacher. And a lot of people worry about the background checks, and I try to educate them too. They'll think, well, if I've had a breakdown, I lost, somebody who was special to me and I had to see a therapist, they're going to say I'm not fit to have a gun. And people really worry about that. And I gotta tell you, like HIPAA is real. Your medical issues are protected. Nobody is going to see that or say you can't own a gun because, you had to deal with some trauma in your life. It's if you're a dangerous person, if you've been convicted of domestic battery or violence, you've shown that you're not capable of controlling yourself, then you're not going to be able to have one. And why should you be able to? You've already demonstrated you're a danger to society. And that should be the only reason that someone can't have a firearm. And that's completely reasonable. So, like I said, I think people are wise enough to make the choice for safety.
Yeah, let's take a look at some statistics since we've been talking about them. So here, I pulled up the mental health. This is not some lefty site. This is the hhs.gov site. So this is the official government site on the prevalence of depression among high school students in the U.S. and then Tennessee specifically. And Tennessee looks like the rest of the country, where 1 out of 3 high school students have reported sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 or more weeks in a row, such that they stop doing usual activities. That's a pretty big 40% of females. That's pretty crazy. And then one major depressive episode is 12%. And then suicidal thoughts, 1 out of 4 female students in Tennessee and 10% of males. So, and then suicide, obviously, not immaterial. These are not small percentages. So I think you're right that there's this mental health crisis going on, like a quiet crisis. It's not talked about as much as, let's say, COVID. But, the greatest country in the world cannot have 1 out of 4 people having like 2 weeks of feeling hopelessness. Like that is just, how is that okay? And you wonder if it's not, maybe there's just not access to, people talk about healthcare. They think, oh, can I go to the doctor and get my, cholesterol medicine or whatever? But there's also mental health, which is just as important. And are you seeing that when you talk to constituents in terms of concerns about accessing all kinds of healthcare, or is that not something that's at the top of people's lists? Like, how does that rank?
It's 100% the top of people's minds, especially out here. We are already very limited in healthcare and facilities being in rural Tennessee. A lot of us have to drive really far. Some local hospitals have been shut down. We face a lot of challenges in regular healthcare, mental health care, and dental. And people are definitely well aware of that. And they are tired of that also. They want answers. They want availability, and they should. Healthcare, including mental health and dental, should 100% be like a basic human right. Nobody should go without, especially like you said, in the greatest country in the world. This is America. We need to really take a stand and set the stage for everybody else like we used to, and say we take care of our people. We don't let people sit here suffering. This is unacceptable in my eyes. So when we're talking about the mental health, that 100% has to be included in healthcare. And some people don't even come forward about it. There's such a huge stigma about feeling depressed, victim shaming, saying, this is your fault or your decision, that people don't even want to talk about it. And it creates just even more problems within that. So we need to deal with the stigma. Nobody wants to see people suffering. Nobody wants that. So we need to really fix it and get mental health care to be a top priority and get people quick, affordable access to it also. And that is going to include kids. I think it's absolutely tragic as a mother to imagine, I have 2 boys. So if they have 2 friends over, one of them at least is feeling this type of way or has experienced it or will experience it and could take their own life. Like, that is not something I am willing to accept. And I will stand up every day and do all of this and give up my life to try to make this better. And I think every mom would do the same.